We don't have anywhere to go, so
We won't do that.
so we're gonna stick around here. Hey, let me ask while we're on here too, waiting for the last couple people to drop in. How many of you got to see, or did any of y'all get to see the call tonight from the AP College Board? Say yes, or if anybody got to see that tonight from the training that the College Board did.
Bertha did.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like CSP. I feel like it was very broad, not very deep. Yeah, so it was good. They talked about some things. Even for me, I've taught AP Computer Science for 13 years, and this is and even online computer science. But this is a very different for me. I had this planning trained for since the beginning of the week, and then I remember this training was coming out tonight by the College Board, and I was like, "Yikes!" Like that was like 2 hours ago, and am I going to be able to have everything to help us move forward with this? But there's I think some things that you bring through every year. So as we kind of jump in to that, so some of this I'm going to repeat. Will they be able to type the response? Yeah, I saw that question. Like somebody said, are they going to be able to type their response into an IDE? So I'm going to jump. Let me before we kind of even talk about that. Let me. I'm going to spend like 5 minutes kind of summarizing for those of you guys that missed what they said in the training a couple hours ago by the College Board. I'm just going to go through really quick and just mention a couple of those things so that you kind of know what we're talking about. That way, if we ask questions and kind of check in, then we can kind of do that. So I just kind of wrote some notes as we were going through it. Any accommodations that your students have currently, they'll still be able to have. He said most of them are like time accommodations, but if you have students that have time accommodations, that will already be factored in if they're in the system that way. They design these exams to be able to be done on a cell phone, laptop, desktop, or tablets. That means that how they're designing these is our AP Computer Science A students should be able to take these on their cell phone if they needed to. I'm like, wow, how are they going to take a AP test on their cell phone? But the reason they said they're doing that is because of just the different income ranges across the country, where some students may not have different things at home, but everybody pretty much has a cell phone. So they also said that it is a 45-minute test. If you weren't aware of that, normally the tests are an hour and a half, but it's going to be 45 minutes. And the reason it's going to be 45 minutes, they said, and they chose that time, was two reasons. For schools that are back in school, they can do that within one class period. And then they don't have to have AP coordinators doing different things and trying to arrange it. It can just be done in a class, which I don't think any of us would be back in school. But for those that aren't, one of the things they said is that they want to be cognizant of the students who have to pay for, maybe they don't have internet at home, but they're just using their cell phone data. So they want to do something that understands data limitations for that. By the way, as I go through these things, I'm kind of just skimming these topics, and we'll jump into what I was going to cover later. But throw up a question. Like I loved Andrea's question there, which I'm going to come to, which obviously we don't have an answer for. But if you have a question on that, so the one of the things they mentioned, yeah. So Abby said they can handwrite them or type them. Yeah. So one of the things they could say, which is if in AP Computer Science, it's normally handwritten anyways. I've had my students practicing handwriting all year, and then just the last couple of weeks, I've been throwing them online because I was assuming it's going to be online. But they can't actually handwrite. Use their phones, take a picture with their phone, and upload it to the College Board's testing service that they're using. If questions come up from students like, will colleges really take this? They said they've been working with colleges, and that colleges are kind of on board with this process and still to allow students to use that and get AP credit for that or college credit. That these are open book, open note, and open computer tests. So you can let your students know that they are open book, open note, and open computer. And therefore, they're kind of moving things. And for our stuff, it's like that anyways, I think. But it's more applying content they learned than stuff that they can look up online. They're cognizant that students are, maybe going to try to go online and go on Reddit or Facebook with their friends or try to, work together and do different things. But so they've said that they've put some things into place to try to stop that. And so, but it's going to be more about applying content they learned. Yeah. Do you think they'll be able to upload during the 25-minute period? Yeah, and that's what I was getting to next. So here's the 45 minutes. It's 2 free response questions, and this is how they said it times out. You have they'll have 25 minutes, and everybody starts at the same time. By the way, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, Friday, May 15th. So that is a date that test is going to happen. 2 free response questions. The first one's 25 minutes, and then after that, they have a 5-minute break to upload whatever they've done, and then they have a 15-minute question. And they have 10 minutes to upload what they've done. So it's very timed, 25 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm used to giving a test for an hour and a half. If any of y'all, I know some of y'all have jumped in here a little bit, but if this isn't your first year doing this, I'm used to teaching my students 4 questions, two parts in each question, hour and a half. Now we're talking 15 minutes on a question, which is going to be very different. Testing at home, these students will have a timer up on their screen that they can minimize if it's a distraction, but it's up to them to download and make sure they upload. So that question is, do you think they'll be able to upload during the 25-minute period? That's the hope. And they said that they're working on having a way to test this or give them some simulations before this ever happens that they're working on, and hopefully by the end of April. So it won't be the first time our students have actually used it. That's what they're saying. It's all in motion and happening in the process here. So yeah, they testing at home. Students need to keep. They have the timer. Handwriting or pictures, and Abby mentioned that, right? That they can handwrite them or type them, and that's where that question about the IDE came up. Somebody on the AP Computer Science Principles A teacher board had asked if they could use an IDE. That's a good question. I don't know if there's anything to stop them from using an IDE, but honestly, part of it though is the College Board's stuff is very the AP, like, what am I trying to say here? Like the AP questions when they normally give them, unless you know what you're doing, an IDE wouldn't really help that much anyways. It's build a method that's going to do this and loop through this array that does this. They can try to squeeze that all in and compile it in time. My thoughts, though, if they're trying to work out all those issues, it could be more of a hindrance to them, and they could get them hung up on. Because one thing they don't have to worry when they're writing is they don't have to worry about syntax. Like they're writing things out and they miss a semicolon. The College Board doesn't take off for that. If they misspell a word slightly, or capitalization, or little things like that, the College Board's not going to take off. So if they're stressed and they're trying to get an ID, that could be a deterrent. They originally stated it was going to be all multiple choice. That was a question, right? The first one was, now give a guess on what the questions will be about. That'll be interesting. So let me answer that one first. They went through a lot of different tests and said, okay, for English it's going to be this, for history it's going to be this. They didn't tell us about AP Computer Science A was going to be. My guess is that they're not going to have them write a lot of code. I mean, I guess maybe in the 25, but a lot of times they'll have them write a class. I think they're going to stick to methods, maybe more detailed methods, and I don't think that the problems, I've seen some like free response problems where they have like, you have this class over here, and then you have this class over here, and then you have this class over here. You have 3 classes, and now you have to look at those, and now you have to write code that's going to, I don't think it's going to be as complex. I think they're going to take that into mind, especially with the 15-minute ones. They're going to give out more information tomorrow, which, we'll look out for that and see what they say, and hopefully give us a little more detail. They originally stated that it was going to be all multiple choice questions, did they say, when they changed the format to FRQ. I don't know. I never heard it was going to be all multiple choice. And so from the time I heard that it was all going to be free, the FRQ. So I don't know when they made that change. I know it's been for a while though that they've said it was going to be FRQ. And then the question, do you have any guesses? Here, I guess I should bring them on the chat. Do you have any guesses? Yeah, on questions. First one, 25 minutes writing a whole class, probably. Yeah, and that's what I was wondering. Writing a whole class, maybe. I think that the way that they'll think about it is because they seem to want to be very inclusive, is that I think they're going to aim for that average student and make sure that they can accomplish what they need to accomplish in 25 minutes. So if it's like writing a class with a lot of different methods, and making sure they have time to take a picture. I don't know. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. I would say definitely some methods, maybe even some like harder methods that where they have to loop through arrays or array lists. 2D arrays and recursion aren't on the AP exam this year. So those are things we don't have to worry about. I don't if you didn't catch those things, and also inheritance. So they're not going to have to um, build an inheritance in a class. Do I think it'll be easier, harder than the prior kind? Uh, I don't know. I That's a good question. I honestly think that it'll be less stressful for I don't know. I think it'll be less stressful on our students, and I think it'll be easier for us to get our students ready for it. And I say that because of this way, that's something we'll kind of jump in here as I show you some things that I kind of do. But we don't have to plan for the multiple choice this year. I mean, for those of y'all that are like a first year teacher, AP Computer Science teacher, this is awesome. I spend at least probably half of my prep time starting in April planning for the multiple choice every year. And the fact that that's not even something that we have to worry about this year, we can just focus on FRQ. Like that saves me a lot of time because I will say that most of I won't say most. I'll say half of my students find the FRQ questions easier than the multiple choice questions on the test. They'll come back and say, "Wow, that was actually easier because I can do things to get partial credit, whereas multiple choice is either right or wrong." And I felt like they were tricking me here, and I couldn't figure out which one. And so, but on multiple choice, I know I gave them some credit at least, and so they'll have a lot more confidence sometimes walking in. So yeah,
Lots of hours.
yeah.
Heavy and Susan.
Yes, I mean that's what I feel. But again, I think our students will be happy, especially if you frame it with your students that way. Um, Once I start really getting into doing a lot of FRQ with them, they find it to be more encouraging because they know they can get points. They know how to get points, and that's what I'm going to kind of show you here. How many of you guys throw in the chat real quick? How many of y'all have done some FRQ stuff already with your students, like some practice stuff and a little bit? Abby, tons. Yeah. So have y'all pretty much covered? Is anybody still actually doing curriculum, like still having to cover some things in the curriculum itself? Russ has started FRQs now. I started like last maybe a week and a half ago. I finished our curriculum and moved into FRQ stuff. We've just finished it. Yeah. So this is a lot of time that people are looking to move into the FRQ stuff. Last couple things I was going to mention. They just said you can let your students know that there'll be a lot of protocols in place, like during the exam to catch students from cheating. They didn't tell us all, and they said they're not going to, but to let your students know that they're there. They said things like they're going to detect impersonation fraud if somebody else is sitting there taking the test for them. They're going to have a way to detect that. Plagiarism software, and they're also going to return all the. They said that when they catch kids cheating, they're going to send that information to all the colleges that are on the SAT. Like College Board runs SAT, so that it attaches to their accounts on that through the SAT or the AP exams. The college boards will get all that information. So how can they do that? Here's what they said. They said that the way you type the keystrokes, I don't know. They said that they have detection, and they didn't tell us how they were going to do that. But they said there's keystroke patterns and how you type or how you write, and we can detect with other people. Or I know that there's some software out there that can tell, like ProctorU and stuff like that, that are other systems that like universities use that can tell when you're like talking with other students or if you're looking at other things on the screen. And so I don't know if they're putting all that stuff in there. The other thing they said, and this is the first time this has pretty much ever happened, is that you will get your students' test back before May 26th and see what they did. So you can, like you said, you can get a student's test back. You're like, yeah, I know there's no way that this kid wrote that code. And so you can tell your students that, like, hey, I'm going to see all your stuff, so you better make sure what you're writing is yours and stuff. And so And then you can even use that for semester finals. They said, like, if you haven't thought about what you're doing for semester final, you could actually use their AP grade. That's the first time they've ever done that ever. And I've been doing this. My first year doing computer science AP was 2008, and this is my first year doing that. Okay. Questions. That's kind of covered what I was going to cover from May 20. They said before May 26th. So they said hopefully earlier than that, but by May 26th that should be out and stuff. So any last questions before I kind of jump in? Just kind of giving you some pointers, scores, and copies. Copies. Actually, you get to see their test, not scores. That they're going to return their test to see and actually see what they did on their tests, because they actually said you can actually look at that and tell if a student actually wrote that code or not. And so that's kind of a cool thing to do. So yeah, any last questions on that? Okay. I'm going to jump into a couple things as we kind of transition into I'm going to give you some pointers tonight of what I've done that I've seen work over 13 years with students. Obviously, it changes a little bit knowing we're not doing hour-and-a-half tests, but I think some of the things still really apply. As I kind of do this, do me a favor, and one of the things I want to do is kind of, let me ask this. How many weeks have you been online now? So just kind of throw that in the chat real quick. 3 weeks. Yeah. How long?
Wow, a lot of 3 weeks.
Yeah, I've been on there 2 weeks now. Is anybody just starting off this week? Everybody's 3 weeks. A lot of people are 3 weeks. So yeah, 1 week. Yeah, 1 week off, 2 weeks before. The cool thing for us is we actually have next week off, because in the Dominican Republic, their spring break is like Easter week. So we kept going all the way through. We haven't had our spring break yet. We have that Easter week. So
They have 2 weeks of spring break.
oh, you have Abby says you have 2 weeks of spring break starting next week.
Nice.
You have 2 weeks, Abby, next week.
And Bertha.
Wow, do you have 2 weeks starting next week? That's really cool. But 4 weeks remote now. Wow. Okay. Awesome. So yeah, so that does kind of chop in, especially if you only have, okay, so we have 5 weeks till the AP exam. Is that right? May, I said the AP exam was May 15th. Is that a new, I just moved over 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 5 weeks. Now it's 6 weeks. So now we have 6 weeks. But if you have 2 weeks off, you have like 4 weeks. Or, so we have either 4 or 5 weeks to get our students where they need to be. And what I've always told my students is my goal is during April. Will the later exam be different? They didn't say. Oh, you mean like, what do you mean by that? Like the May 15th exam? So I know they're going to have a May 15th exam, and then they're going to have a June, did I write that? June 3rd exam. But if your students are taking a June 3rd one, the late exam, it has to be approved by the school. Just like it normally would have to be approved by the school, there has to be extenuating circumstances why they didn't take it. And the school has to go through into it. So students don't get to choose which one they want to take. So so they got to make sure they do that. So we have 4 weeks. What I always tell my students is my goal, once they start taking like full-blown AP exams, and I don't know if you've given a full-blown AP exam again, a lot of my students will range. Some of them will be starting off in the 20s and 30s with their FRQs when I say that, like percentage-wise when I grade them, or all the way to 50s and 60s. And I always tell them at the beginning, my goal is to get you up 20 to 30 points from where you're at. So if you're at a 40, to get you up to a 70. And I'm usually, with what I'm doing, I usually can get students there, because a big part of what I do is in my classes is at least help them to get confident. Let me ask you a question real quick. Where are y'all getting your FRQ? Those of you that are doing FRQs, where are y'all getting those right now? Like, where are you getting your sources to get those? The computer science, the College Board question bank? Yeah. Yeah, so most of them are yeah, I just lost my chat here. Hold on. Here we go. Yeah, I get a lot of them have been online. Anybody using any like review books, like the Barron's AP Computer Science or anything like that? Anybody? I mean, I've used that for like 10 years in a row. This is my first year I'm not actually using that because like I said, we're in the Dominican Republic and they shut down the borders and we didn't get our book shipped in. They shut down the borders 3 weeks ago. And so I was like, well, we're going to go a different route with it this year. And so I'm using a lot of the, oh yeah, I'm losing it. There we go. Yeah. So Barron's, I've loved using Barron's stuff. I think it's given my students the best review stuff. So if you can get your hands on one of those, even though I say that, let me change all that up though. I would have said that before we have the new AP exam stuff now, but now like I would say let's wait till tomorrow and see what's actually going to be on that because it's good for multiple choice. It's really good on a good regular AP exam year. This is different. So let me tell you kind of some just hints and stuff. I don't know if you guys have, when I've just started uploading this stuff, I don't know if you guys have been able to get into the computer science teachers curriculum stuff that I've been adding. And just today, I've started adding some AP review stuff in there and kind of gearing it more towards only frequent FRQ stuff, trying to gear it towards this year. And now I'm building this a week at a time at this point because this is all new. And so I'm just kind of putting up a week at a time. So I have a week stuff that I just loaded. But one of the things that I found really helps my students, and so let me encourage you if you can find a way to do this, and my stuff actually will help you do this too, but whatever you're using, is letting your students be graders or readers. And what I mean by that is this will save you time and this will save, and this will actually, more than anything I've done is help my students like take their stuff to the next level, is let them grade their own free response stuff if you're not doing that. In class, when I would do it at school, I would get up on the board and I would walk through it together with them. And I'd be like, okay, you're grading your own stuff. And they'd walk through doing that on the College Board. And I have about a week's worth of stuff on my stuff too now. They actually have student responses from every year, like handwritten, that you can also get. I make my students do a free response question. I make them grade their own free response question. Like what I have right now, and it's on that thing too. I have a video that will walk them through grading it. I make them grade their own and assign points to it, and then I give them the free response questions from that other students have written that the College Board has posted online. And when you do that, and they become a grader and a reader, it does 3 things. I've said 3 things. I don't know if I'm going to say 3, but it does several things for them. Number 1, if they don't know how to write the code, they now see how to write the code. And if you do this on every question, and what you'll notice on the questions a lot of times on the FRQ questions is they'll be like, I can almost guarantee you'll see one of these, that they'll have to write a loop that loops through an array list, an array, a set of values. They're going to have to build a loop. I've never seen AP test where they don't require you to build a loop. So I give them these 3 hints to start off with. I was going to put this stuff together to give to you guys, but instead I spent the evening listening to the College Board. So I'm just going to tell you them. I might actually write them here, or maybe my wife can write. Gianni, maybe you can write these in as I do these. But I tell my kids 3 things. To look for these 3 things every single FRQ they do. The first one is to look at the question and see what methods that they use in the question, because they are there for a reason and you're going to have to use them again. Okay, so I put on my thing like use helper methods. Use helper methods, and I'll just put these in the chat. But that's because I'll find a lot of times I'll find students skim things and then they'll try to write their code without actually paying attention to what came before. If the methods are there before, they're there for a reason. I tell my students, look at them. You're going to have to use them. Okay, so that's number 1. What methods are there? Know what they're there for so that you can use them. Number 2, does it need a loop? Oh, and I tell them this too because, yeah, you can put this one there, but does it need a loop? Because when they use these methods, a lot of times the College Board will take off points. The rubrics will take off points. If you wrote the code and it works perfectly, but you didn't actually use the method they wanted you to use from before, they won't give you full credit. Like in the rubrics themselves, they actually say, did they use this loop? So I tell my students, Use those helper methods. Use the methods that are there. Use them. Okay. Doesn't need a loop. I tell my students, if it needs a loop, if you have to loop through an array, make sure they know how to loop through an array. Make sure they know how to loop through an array list, because they'll have to do that. If it needs a loop, even if they throw a loop on there, they'll get partial credit. Okay. So even if they go through and they don't, I tell them, if you don't know what to put inside the loop, that's okay. Like, put a loop on there, because you'll get points by just doing that. So get a loop on there. And then number 3, what does it return? What does this return? Just know from the beginning, what does it return? Even if you don't know how to calculate everything. So you don't know how to write the program, you don't know how to get everything into the array, you don't know how to do the calculations, return something at the end, because you'll get credit for that. So those 3 things. And I tell them every question, what methods you need to use, does it need a loop, what does it return? Okay. So so as they go through their questions and they do that, again, I don't have them do a whole test. I break it down one question at a time, especially this first week. I would just have them do one question. And then again, have them grade them. Okay, grade their own. So I have them grade their own. Then I give them 3 other students, the ones that are on the College Board, and I have them grade other students, and they get to see. It does, like I said, it does 3 things. As graders, I don't know, I've been an AP grader, an AP reader as we call them, but it helps me be a better teacher in my classroom, because I know what to expect. I know what to expect, and I can teach my students better. And it helps my students now be better when they get to grade their own. So grade their own and grade it. Yeah, my wife wrote that in there. That thing that says Adam Clay is my wife writing that in. But they know what to expect. They know what the readers are looking for. They know how to because they're a reader. They know, okay, they may be looking for a loop. They're going to look for a return type. But the big thing that helps mine also jump is that they get to see where how to do something they didn't know how to do. And it's one thing for them to write it. It's another thing for you to go up on the board and show them and write it out. But it's another thing when now they're the reader or the grader, and they have to go through and go, okay, did this person write this loop so it doesn't have an index out of bounds error? Because that's a question that's probably will be on one of the loops. Make sure they don't have index out of bounds errors. So did they write that in a way that they won't have index out of bounds errors? And your students will actually learn to do that. So I know it takes more time. So what I'll do, like the pattern I'll do with my students, okay, you're going to do a free response one day. The next day, you're going to grade your own. We're going to walk through it in class, and you're going to grade your own. And the next day, I'm going to give you 3 different other students ones, and you're going to grade those. And even beyond that, I have my students grade them, not just give me the points, but they'll have to write a small paragraph of why they gave the points to each one. And that even takes it to the next level, because now they're not just writing it. They're not just giving them points, but they're to say, this is why they got the points. They didn't get this point because their loop had an index out of bounds error. They didn't get this point because they didn't calculate this correctly. And all of a sudden, their growth is just happening like this. And this took my students literally up. Honestly, my students started scoring probably on average 2 points higher than they were before I implemented this kind of tactic in there. And so, yeah, I keep looking at that, and that's me. But any questions as we kind of go on there, kind of throw those into the chat here. Let's see. Okay, so again, having like a 5-week plan here, a 4-week plan, I started putting one together for us to be like, okay, this is what we should do. And then I was like, realistically, I'm jumping the gun because they're going to tell us a lot more tomorrow. So, so what we have tomorrow, I'm going to put some stuff together and I'll put it in an email. What are my plans for implementing that with online school? Okay, so what I have, again, if you and I think most of y'all have signed up for the Computer Science Teachers free trial. Let me jump over real quick. I'm going to share my screen just so you can see. Do that real quick. Okay, y'all can see my screen, right? All right. So this is the this is a free trial that we have, and this, like I said, I'm kind of building this. I'm having to build it week by week right now. So, I have like the first week of something that you could run through on here, but what I have is This will load up. So I have kind of this is kind of what my week looked like. So I did an introduction to FRQ questions. So I have a video that they can watch that introduces them why they should be a grader. Why is it important? Why is it how to respond to the FRQs? And actually, I go through those three hints with them. I talk about the three hints, why they need to do those things, and then I actually walk through the first question with them. They'll actually attempt it on their own, but I'll actually walk through that and we'll build it with them. And so I do that, and then they have, so they build that. That's the first day. They kind of build their own, and that's the first question. This is from the 2008 exam, and so I have them do that. Then the next day, I talk to them about being graders. Again, all the stuff is on here. You guys can jump through and use this however you want, as I kind of go through it. But so this video is talking about being graders and teaches them how to be a grader. I put some things up here like, let's see if these open. So this is here's a canonical solution for it. And I talked about what that is, but here's actual students. So they've worked through this problem. So I have them work through this problem on Monday. I help them learn how to grade it. And then I give them these. I say, okay, I did A1 and A2. I do that with them. And then their assignment for the day is they do B1, B2, and then C1 and C2. And they have to grade those. And then I have them give a grade to that and write a paragraph of why they gave a point, like one sentence for each point. Why did you give a point or why did you not give a point? So that's kind of that pattern, right? So I do that. And then again, and then I did another one with them. You know, so then this one, and it's a little, so I kind of do some scaffolding in there. So at the very beginning, I walk with them through it. I'm creating these videos. I walk them through it. Just handhold them along the way, and I don't grade them. Okay, so that's another question. I don't know if that's popped up yet, but how do you grade this? At the beginning, I just tell them it's completion. Like, you're going to attempt this, and I'm going to give you a 100 for attempting it. Because one of the things I don't want to do is stress them out at the beginning. One of the things we want to do with these FRQs is build their confidence, not hurt their confidence. And so, you know, they walk in and they end up getting a 60 or 70 or however we grade that because they just don't know what they're doing. That can just destroy their confidence, and you may not ever get that back. So at the beginning, I just give them completion grades and let them build kind of those completion grades towards that. The first week at least I do that. So I do 2 of them, and I kind of did the same thing here. So on day 2, I didn't even give them the video. So on this one, I just said, okay, so no video on this one. I'm not going to walk you through it. Here it is. But this one's actually an easier one. This was from the 2009 test. It was one class. It was 2 small methods. It was kind of an easy one I can just let them jump into. But then again, after that, they went in and the second day, they go in and actually grade. And I know, like, it seems like we're not covering as much, but grading, I think, is such a huge, huge part. So again, over here, I have a video again on the grading part, just again to teach, because we're teaching them how to do that. And then where they can go in and, you know, so this is a worksheet I put on here, you know, grading solutions, where they go through and they copy and paste their code they did from the day before, and they grade it and write a paragraph. And then they go through and they actually grade the other students. And so I'm going to do this pattern for like the first week. That's what I'm doing. And then even going into the second week, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to maybe do 2 a week. And just to build their confidence. Eventually, though, what I told my students today is this is it. Like, after this, it's going to start being grades. Now, one thing I also did for my students, which I like to do, because everything for me for these tests are about building confidence. I'm going to flip my camera back on. Everything is about building confidence with our students, because I've seen students who I thought were going to do poorly, but because of their confidence level, they were able to walk in and actually do better than I expected. And so, so one of the things I started doing, and this is just a thought, you know, a suggestion too, is you can make some of these free FRQ questions extra credit points, like bonus points for them. So I tell mine, it's a completion grade, but for every point that you get on this out of 5, to maybe you get 9 on a question, every one of those can be an extra credit point that you can use later on when we actually start doing these for grades. And that way they know, okay, well, if I do really bad on this one, I've got some extra credit points kind of in the bank I can use to kind of build my grade up. Because for me, honestly, it doesn't matter, their grade as much as actually going in and making sure they have the confidence. But eventually they need to start getting grades. Eventually they need to at least feel the pressure of doing that. So I told my students today, actually, so I did 2 FRQ ones today. And what I find, honestly, if you start looking through the FRQs in the exams, the first ones are normally the easier ones. So I would look through and find some easy ones. I mean, actually, if you look through the ones I'm doing this week, even use some of those. Start them with some of the easy ones. And but I told my students this week, okay, this is the last one that is what's it called? This is the last one that's completion. And now you're going to start doing some for that are going to count for grades, because I want them to feel the pressure of that. Yeah, I just sent it. So one of the things that I do all year long is, because I know this time of year is coming, and I know my students start with, like, when I start grading, they start with 30s and 40s and on these things. And I want to be realistic. I don't want to be like, well, you really got an 80. Okay, well, I want them to feel the pressure. Like, okay, I need to get this high. So I give them those grades, but at the very beginning of the school year, starting at the beginning, and like they start building a bank of extra credit points with me. In different ways. We do some multiple choice. Whenever I do MCQ questions with them, I do those for extra credit. Okay, you're building extra credit points. You're putting them in the bank. You're putting them in the bank. Save them for this month. I don't know if you've ever heard of Coding Bat. Anybody type in there if you've ever used Coding Bat for anything. Yeah, Coding Bat. The ones that don't give the solutions, I let my students do those for extra credit points. I'm like, go in there and do some Coding Bats. So. And I know those solutions are probably available online now. So one of the things I may do for next year, how many of you guys are using REPL in your classes? So type in there if you're using REPL. So as you're typing that in, somebody said, "Are you meeting with your students each day?" I haven't met with my students at all. Okay, well I have, but here's what I do: is I just do office hours with my students. So I tell my students, it's because, and like all of you, like all of us here probably, I have more than one prep. I mean, I'm assuming y'all have more than one prep here. So, I don't. So I tell all my students. So from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Like that is my office hours. If you need to meet with me, you can send me an email, and I'll set up we use Google Meet. If you need to meet with me, I'll set up a Google Meet. We'll meet. And so my AP students will, as they're going through things, if they're like, I'm just really stuck, can we set up a meet? I'll set up a meet. And I actually find that more efficient because I'm able to meet with each student one-on-one. And what I spend my time in the afternoons doing is creating videos for them. And so I pretty much have gotten everything to a point where I don't have to meet with them. I'm able to do just through online videos. And the good thing for me about this is I've actually taught online AP computer science in some form or fashion for the last 7 years. And so this was like, for me, I'm used to my students not always getting to meet with me. So it didn't throw me off doing this. The biggest thing that's thrown me off is transitioning from, hey, bud, sorry, my son's coming in. You going to bed? Sorry, real world stuff. Love you, bud. Come here. See you in the morning. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I got thrown off. But what was I talking about? But yeah, I've got to teach it online. But it's different though, and I think all of us are in the same boat of having to transition from being classroom teachers to online teachers. So this is a whole different way of doing it. One of the things though, if you're finding ways to give extra credit points, if you're looking for a way to do that, REPL.it. I have the training we did last week was on that. So if you didn't see that, and you haven't seen that, go catch that video. It's on the Facebook page. Put that Facebook page in there just so they can go catch that. But that I show you in there, there's actually like 120 pre-made assignments that you can assign to your students that are like Coding Bat on REPL. And you can just assign all those. You can just put all of them on there and say, hey, these are all on there. Go do them. And without the bookmarks on the end of it. But just But so yeah, go in there and if you're looking for ways to do that. But I would really, you know, try not to discourage your students with grades, because I know that like as they do some of these, your top students, you'll be like, okay, they're doing great, but you'll have your students that are just like, kind of right on the bottom, but they can get there, but if they get discouraged, they're just not going to do it. And so finding ways that you can do that again for this whole week, my whole thing's been completion, and they can earn extra credit points. Next week, I'm going to do some grades, but here's my extra credit points. And again, for me, I don't get caught up in the grades this time of year because I just know that can wreck a student's like their confidence, and I want to build them up in confidence. And so my extra credit points I do because like on an AP test, it's like for a question it's like 9 points. So instead of doing it out of 100, I'll give them an extra credit point that they can use. So if they only got 4 points, I'll give them an extra credit point directly to that. So I wouldn't just do it like I would give the points, if that makes sense what I'm saying. So if a question's 8 out of 9 points, they can take an extra credit point and throw it on there. But whatever you can just to boost their confidence. So what I'm doing, the first week, one question at a time, walk them through it. Always let them grade their own stuff and other stuff. Do short ones, do scaffolding. Again, if you want to use my videos to sign those things, like I honestly, I've just thrown my videos to my students. I'm recording them. I'm giving them my student, I'm walking them through them. Everything's there. You can give that to them, and then they will, and then they can just email if you have questions. I think that's an easy thing, especially with all the preps that we have. And then week 2, do the same thing. Let them answer 2 questions. So for first, we had them answering 1. Next week, my plan, which could completely change tomorrow when we hear what's new. My plan is to introduce and have them do 2 questions. Okay, 2 questions a day, and I'm building them up. So now they're going to do 2 questions. I'm going to make one of them completion, and maybe make one of them. This one's going to be for a grade. The easy one's for a grade, and the next one's only going to be extra credit points that you can throw back on this grade. I don't know, just finding creative ways to let them boost their confidence while still, keeping them and holding their feet to the fire on that. So that's my first 2 weeks. And as we keep going through this, this whole thing's new for me and for you guys, but new for me even of how we're doing it this year. So I'm going to be kind of figuring it out through the last 3 weeks, especially after we figure out what the last exam looks like. But I'll keep you guys in the loop on that. Other questions that anybody has? As we're kind of throwing in, and you're throwing in your questions, do me a favor too, because I think it's encouraging. I know like we sit here and sometimes like, okay, we're doing this whole crazy thing, first year AP computer science teachers and doing all this stuff. How are we doing this? But I know some good things are happening too. So throw in some success stories. Like what things have gone good for you over the last 2 or 3 weeks in your online classes, just to kind of encourage us and stuff. So while we're post some questions, but also, while we're kind of waiting for some questions, throw in some encouraging things. So Bertha asked, moving forward with 2 questions per week plan, what do you think is better? 2 questions of the same type each week. I'm going to start doing, I'm going to do a question from 1 and a question from 2. And so, and what I mean by that, when you kind of if you look through a lot of the tests, and I assume all of you'll know that you can access all the tests like back till 2003, I think, or something on the College Board site. Yeah, does everybody know how to do that? Type no if you don't know how to do that, and I'll show you real quick. But so you can go back and you can access all these tests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a question from number 1 in there, because those tend to be a little bit easier. And then I'll do a question so I'll introduce question number 2 next week. So I'll do a question from 1 exam and a question from number 2 and throw it in that way. And I will kind of mix it up a little bit, but kind of building it up. I'm not going to throw at them next week, build a class. Now my students throughout the year have actually done that. They've actually, on our quizzes, a lot of the quizzes, the way I do them is I have them writing out classes. But for the AP exam, I don't want them leaving in 2 weeks going, I can't do this. I want them to go, I got this. And that's kind of our goal for these next 2 weeks, is make our students feel like, I got this, I can do this, especially because we're not in front of them. It's one thing when you're in front of them every day going, okay, guys, I know that didn't go well, but we got this. It's another thing when they're sitting at home and they're just like, yeah, that was bad. I'm not going to get this. Susan said I will do a short Zoom with them twice a week to at least check in with them live. Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I do that with I'm actually I don't. I've tried to do that with them. I have I'm trying to think of how many classes I actually do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which isn't a lot, but I have 5 different classes, and so I I started thinking about doing the once a week meet in. I do check in once a week with them by email. I do think it's a great idea though to check in with your students once a week. I probably should do that. But I also know that I spend like 30, 45 minutes sometimes with one student on a call. We did a project last week where they were doing like this Uno game and using array lists, and I was on a call with one student for like 35 minutes, but then all the other students were able to figure it out. So I love being able to do that as well. Susan asks, do you encourage them to look it up somewhere if they get stuck? To look up the answers like themselves, or just to I'll tell you what I encourage my students. I had a student, one of my top students that actually emailed me, which was really weird. He emailed me. He's like, I'm on B, and I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And here's what I said. I said, look, what you do is, I honestly emailed him my 3 hints. I said, use helper methods. So look back at your helper methods. Do you need a loop? And look at what you're returning and give as much information as you can. And because normally on an AP exam, they can't. They're going to get stuck at some point. And so instead of me going, go over here and find this or go look up something, normally, and that might be different on this year's AP exam, but normally they can't do that. And if they get stuck, I want those 3 things embedded in their mind. Okay, I'm stuck, but I know I can write a loop. I know I can return something, and I know that there's some method that I have to use here somewhere. So how can I use that? And so that's all I emailed them back. I said, do the best you can. Use those 3 things. Yeah, she said, like, look it up in CodeHS to see how it basically is done. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I don't do that. I don't have my students that. I don't even think my students know what CodeHS is, because we don't. I don't use CodeHS, but I know there's places out there that you can do that, and I'd love. I've heard it's really good CodeHS stuff. But fortunately, they don't know what that is, so they don't do that. I really push them. Put what you know, and if you don't know it, it's okay, because when you grade it for yourself, you're going to learn it. So instead of you're going to learn it that way, and you're going to see what you did wrong, especially when you graded it 4 times. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where I kind of push my students. Yeah. Oh, so think of at first to look it up to build confidence, then push them to do it by yourself without online help. Yeah. So look, you're talking about this, Susan, you're talking about like the specific FRQ questions. Yeah. So, yeah, anything that we can do scaffolding wise, I would do definitely with that. So, and I want to be respectful of our time here, because we've got like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And so, any last questions? But also, I didn't see any success stories. Are we really not doing well this week? Any good? Anything great that, like, I had a student that that emailed me last week and was like, she was kind of like an average student that struggled with some of the code. But one of the things that now that they're at home, she's forced to not rely on me as much and get help from herself. And she emailed me after she completed this Uno project. And it was just like, Mr. Clay, I got stuck, but like I did this thing and I just wanted to brag to my teacher. I'm so excited. Like, it was like, I find my students are actually sometimes doing better online than they are in the classroom. So that was a success for me this year, is seeing some of my classroom students move to the online area. So any last questions before we get off, before we let you go? Again, please, like I said, jump in, use that stuff this week if it's helpful to you at all. Jump into the AP Computer Science or the Computer Science teacher stuff. Use it. I'm trying to do these trainings once a week. Usually with the curriculum, the premium curriculum, we do once every 2 weeks training. But while we're doing the stay-at-home thing, I'm doing them once a week. So just look out, for whatever else is coming in, and at least we get to check in with each other and see how things are going. And yeah, anything that you might have missed on here, I'll have this video posted. I forgot to record our session last week, so I had to redo the whole thing. But this one, I've got it recording. Fine. So I'm thankful about that. But I appreciate you guys checking in. You guys have my email. I emailed. Just always hit reply on that. If you ever have any questions for me, you can reach me directly that way. And yeah, I appreciate you guys showing up. Any last questions before I let y'all go? Well, everybody have a safe evening, a good evening. It was great meeting you guys. I wish you guys luck as you move forward, getting our students ready for the AP exam. So have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.
How do I stop my recording? It's right there.